Welcome back to the Samantha Show. I'm your host, Samantha. You can call me Sam. Just don't call me Sammy. And I am here with FoulMouthedFit. Her name is Andrea Ruelas. It is not Andrea. It is, in fact, Andrea.
That's true.
Just had to get that clear.
Yeah. That is accurate.
Andrea and I work together. We are both on the education team with CycleBar, but our history goes way back. We were both roommates at Camp CycleBar out in Santa Monica many years ago, dreamers and longing for our chance on the education team. And look at us now.
Look how far we've come. I mean, truly, from just hotel rooms to other hotel rooms. And now we're on a podcast.
We're just still in a hotel. Yeah.
Andrew, we never left.
We never really, we just got the title changed, the work changed a little bit. Andrea is one of the smartest humans I've ever known. Not only is she a former lawyer, which we're going to talk about today, but she was also on the TV show The Chase. So she's basically my first celebrity ever on the podcast. How does it feel to be the first ever real life celebrity on the Samantha Show?
I am so honored. As my husband would put it, I am probably the coolest D-list celebrity that you know.
You win, which it was so much fun to watch. And you're a breast cancer survivor. I mean, you've done all the things you've accomplished. You're a fighter. You're just so intelligent, former lawyer, now in the fitness industry. That's what I want to talk to you about today is how our journeys I know you and I have really bonded over this idea of taking a less traditional career path and the pressure and the outside pressure and what that feels like and things like that. But I want to talk about that. But first, it's the 3 things you need to know. And Andrea knows everything. So when I was like, girl, what are you going to tell us? Like, she knows it all. So can you give us, Andrea, the 3 things that people need to know?
It was so hard to narrow this down because I feel like I do this possibly on a daily basis. Like if you come take my class, there will be 100% some fact that you did not and probably never needed to know, but I feel that it's important to tell you. So like all of my students are unfortunately very well versed in like Vanderpump Rules because I insisted on speaking about it every day. But I decided to go with like my 3, since we so beautifully segued into my trivia background. I really like to know weird things and I like to learn a lot about a lot of different things. So I only choose to go in depth on very few subjects, but I like to know a lot. So I've decided to go with my 3 favorite like trivia fun facts because I think they're good for them to be out there. Okay, so the first one is the one that I always use as like my pop culture like icebreaker, which is that the Olsen twins are not identical twins; they are fraternal. And no one believes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, no one seems to believe it, even though one of them is taller and one of them is left-handed, the other one is right-handed. And then now actually what gives me more like people believe it more is now that their younger sister is more popular. And when people see like Elizabeth Olsen, they're like, oh, actually, it's just a really strong family resemblance. So that's my first
Interesting.
fun fact. They're not identical.
I did not know that. That is good to know. I definitely feel like now that they're older, they have their own looks. But when they were young in their movies, I never would have known the difference.
No, and I think that, I remember learning this fact, and I think it was one of the many ways I was like, oh, trivia is like fun. So this is like my one that I dropped just to see how people like not believe me, which is really fun. Plus I like being right. That's part of the reason I think I enjoy trivia. Like I like to challenge my brain, but I also really like being right and other people not being right.
I had no idea that. I would have never guessed that about you ever.
So. No, weird. You don't send emails to people trying to prove that you were right. So yeah, that's fun fact number 1 about the Olsen twins. Perfect. Fun trivia fact number 2 is that the closest point of the U.S. in distance to Africa is actually Maine.
No.
I'm just gonna let that live. Yeah, I know. So that was another one. So
I don't think I would have thought that with Maine. Yeah. Okay.
Because every map you've ever seen makes you think you would say Florida, right? You're like, look, like the little pointy part of Florida.
Absolutely.
Like
down at the bottom
that's
there.
The closest part.
Yeah.
Nope.
For sure.
Like maps are arranged to make them look a certain way. And so actually, like if you really look at it, apparently Maine is the closest to Africa. Very confusing. But I also saw one yesterday that says that driving. I know. And then I saw another one yesterday that said driving south from Detroit takes you to Canada. And my brain could not understand this.
Interesting.
Yeah. My third one is actually from my background. So I studied languages and linguistics at school. That was what I really thought I was going to do with my life. And my favorite fun fact is that you can actually say a perfectly grammatical sentence using only the word buffalo. So it's actually just buffalo, 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 buffalo. It's like 8 buffaloes in a row. And it's about buffalo or bison from Buffalo, New York, that are making fun of other buffalo from Buffalo who make fun of or buffalo other buffalo from Buffalo.
I get
That's
it
my weird one.
now.
Yeah. It's like, that is what I used to do in school, is draw little sentence trees explaining how this sentence makes sense. So that is how I spent many years of my life.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the only tattoo I ever considered getting was like a buffalo or a cat. But I didn't want to
buffalo?
explain to people why I had a buffalo tattoo, so I just didn't do it.
I don't know. I think it's great. It's smart.
That's actually really what I
she's the
thought I
smartest.
was going to study for the rest of my life. Like, I was so into it, and I realized how weird that was because no one else, like even in my classes, when it was required for our major, I would sit there and be like, oh, we can start with this word in Latin, and here's how it changed with this thing into this thing. And to me, it felt like a fun puzzle, but no one else thought it was fun. It was just me that thought it was fun. And I started to think like, well, maybe we should just keep doing this. But I very much instead gave in to what I thought was more practical. Because it turns out I don't think people pay you for that.
So what was more practical for you? That takes us into a little bit of your background and where things get started for you. So share with us your story.
So I grew up in Cupertino, which now some people know as the weather app city. It is the home of Apple. And it's an area that has a lot of a very, very large immigrant population. And at the time, a lot of East Asian immigrants. And there was a lot of pressure to perform well in school. So we have some of the top performing public schools in the country, possibly in the world. And it was so normal to just do things because of the status or the title or because it was what you were supposed to do. So, I mean, we have terms for parents of Harvard children. You call like a parent, like a Harvard student's mom is a hama. Like that is what, it's that part of the culture. So I was convinced I wasn't going to get into school anywhere because God forbid, you know, you have a 1580 and not a 1600 on your SAT. So I thought I wasn't going to get into college, which is insane now. And thankfully got into UCLA, decided I was going to be different than my peers. And instead of majoring in like pre-law, by this point I had realized I was not good at the math and science thing. So I decided to just go really different, and I decided to major in Spanish and linguistics. And then I minored in Asian American studies. I just went for things that I found personally interesting. And then it got to the point of, okay, what do we do after graduation? And I was so terrified of having to figure out what to do with something that was not an easily charted plan. And I also had a lot of family pressure. So I think for my mom and for my grandmother, they didn't get a chance to pursue higher education. So I was given a choice, which was you can stay in school and we will continue to help support you financially, or you can like go off on your own and try to be a grad student in these things that make no sense to us. So I picked, to me, what I thought was the easy route. And my brother makes fun of me for this all the time, that I think this is the easy route, is going to a top 15 law school. It seemed like less of a
easy.
Yeah, it's very neat, very easy. I'm like, I like school, like it'll be fine. So I stayed at UCLA for another 3 years to get my law degree. Wow. It was not easy, as it turns out, but it was fine.
And then did you end up actually graduating and practicing law for some time?
So I graduated. I thankfully passed the bar on my first attempt. Pro tip, do not study for the bar and plan your wedding at the same time. That is a terrible idea. And go on a keto diet and try to lose weight for your wedding, which is the most basic thing ever.
That sounds very stressful and like a headache, like an ongoing headache.
Yeah, it was an ongoing headache. And every time I got mad at people, their heads would like turn into carbs. Like it'd just be like, I'd be talking to someone, their face would just be a bowl of rice. And I was like, I am stressed. We are not well.
I'm stressed.
My now husband would come home and just find me lying on the floor, petting the cat, just muttering things like, you'll still love mommy if she doesn't pass the bar. We were not well. So we finished that. And then we decided to move back to my hometown area. So we moved back to the San Francisco Bay Area. And I actually really struggled to find work. It was not a great, this is 2012. It was not a great time to be out in the career market. So I started taking on just kind of contract jobs. And then I got lucky. And after a few months of kind of going around trying to find something, I actually landed a pretty cushy contract gig at a large company that most people know as a search engine called Google. So I was there for about 2 years. Again, I was a contractor, so I worked through kind of an outside agency, but that's very common at Google. So I was there on their in-house team for about 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get all the benefits of the Google campus?
Yes and no. So it was weird. As a contractor, you literally have a red badge. Like you think that's a joke, like a red letter. Nope. You literally carry around a red badge to identify you as lesser than. You get to eat, which to me was the best, but I didn't really care about the other benefits. I was like, oh, this is great. So you get to eat all your meals, which I did. I had a filing cabinet for no reason because all of our work is electronic. So like there's no paper.
Yeah.
My filing cabinet was just snacks.
Yeah.
Like if you open the bottom drawer, it was all the snacks I had pilfered from the kitchen. And that's what I did. The one thing you could not do, which I think is so weird, as a contractor, you can't participate in community service events. Of like all the perks that you can't take advantage of. So you get to take advantage of the gym and all these other things, but not like the community service stuff. So,
well, so here you are essentially, you're on Google campus. You have this cushy job as you describe it. You have a law degree. You passed the bar. You're doing all these things. And she decides she wants to do fitness. So how do we end up from all this into the fitness industry?
Yeah, I haven't thought about this in a while. Sam knows this about me, but I am an fellow Enneagram type 3. And at some point in the not in between like the contract jobs and not having landed the Google job yet, I do not do well when I am unemployed. I do not do well when I'm not working. I always have to be doing something. Like my focus has to be somewhere.
Sure.
And during that time, I struggled so much with my self-worth, my identity, was just really having a crisis of confidence because I couldn't seemingly land a job. And so much of it was factors that were out of my control. And I understand that now and also understand a lot more about your self-worth not being tied in your job. But being unemployed is very different. So I had started actually taking group fitness classes as a substitute for dancing and as a way to help me lose weight for my wedding. Honestly, like that's really where it started. And I liked the classes so much, but when I moved up to the Bay Area, the classes were not being delivered in the style that I was used to. And so I was in between jobs, figured I never really want to be unemployed ever again. I want to have something to do, something that takes me out of the house, even if I don't have, a steady 9 to 5. And so I reached out to my local studio and asked how to become a certified teacher. And this actually started me with a brand, and you've had fellow people in the brand from Lagree Fitness on. So it started me teaching that particular format. And for a long time, actually probably most of the 2 years I was at Google, I balanced my day job with my kind of passion side project, which was teaching classes. So at a certain point, I realized I was spending, minimum 40 hours a week at my day job. And it's almost particularly when the day job became less interesting and less fulfilling, I caught myself teaching more and more classes. So a pretty normal week for me would be probably working at least 40 hours a week at Google, and then teaching at least 7 classes a week on the side, which I now understand is a lot. But I think I was so desperate to feel anything outside of kind of the boredom of my job.
Yeah, you saying that takes me to my journey as well. And I feel very similar in this idea that getting into fitness just started to bring this passion and excitement into something that I thought maybe I had at my job or I thought I was enjoying, but I was like, oh, wait, if I like this and it's fine, I really love this. And it's to the point. I think it's always a big indicator if you're willing to work 9 to 5 and then fill up all your free time doing this other thing. It's like green flag, like you must really love this. So you're doing both at the same time. When do things start to transition? And what does that look like when you're like, I feel like fitness is what is calling me?
So in some ways, I'm really grateful now to the external circumstances because they led me to not only discover teaching, which I never thought I was going to do. I mean, I got into a class in law school that was about trial advocacy. You got to actually practice what it would be like to be a lawyer in a courtroom. It was a really hard class to get into, and I only got into because the professor liked me. And after 1 week of it, I dropped the class because I was so terrified of having to speak in front of people. And
wow. I never would have guessed that.
and people are so shocked. I'm like, I grew up I was actually pretty shy growing up, and my parents, in trying to help me, actually signed me up for a bunch of public speaking classes, especially when I think they realized like, oh, the math is not quite there. So probably not a doctor. And I think lawyer was like the next available best option. So of course she should be able to learn how to give a speech and talk in front of people, but it made my fear so much worse. So by the time we're, in our 20s in law school, I had already realized I would black out when I had to speak in front of people. I gave multiple speeches in law school as because I had to, and I don't remember anything. So when I first was thinking about this teaching fitness, it felt insane because I could barely be conscious while speaking in front of a room of people. So it was something I knew was going to stretch me quite a bit, but like it really helped me, I think, conquer this long-standing fear that I had really convinced myself was just going to be how I was. Like I can never really be this kind of a lawyer because I am not going to be able to be up in front of people without losing my mind. So I think as my contract at Google, there's a maximum amount of time you can stay there before they kind of either have to offer you full-time employment or you just need to get out. It starts to blur lines of employment and contractor nerd stuff. So I knew my time was coming to an end. At this point, my team, I was just not that interested anymore in what we were doing. I didn't have a lot of opportunities to continue to grow. I kind of had maxed out what I could do in that job. So I was really just sitting in it because it was comfortable and they fed me, like I will stay somewhere for chocolate chip cookies as it turns out. So we're getting close to the end. I'm teaching a ton. And it's exactly what you said, actually. I was like, okay, I clearly love this other thing so much. So maybe I think initially I told myself, maybe we'll just take a break from trying to find the next lawyer gig and I'll just teach fitness for a little while and just see where it goes. But I think there was a piece of me that thought, what if I could make this more of my full-time thing? Because I clearly love it. And then a lot of it was just hard work and really, really good timing. So at this point, I've been teaching enough places, my name has been out there, and people were starting to open studios. So there were actually more places, there were more opportunities. And I like to work hard. So I said yes to everything. I taught at a bunch of different studios. I would drive up and down all day. And slowly, but really not that slowly, I filled my schedule. So I think at my maximum, so this is 2015, my Google contract expires. I start so-called, as my husband put it, easing in to teaching. And at a certain point, I think I was at my average week was probably 24 classes a week. I think that's pretty normal. I would do probably a chunk of 7 a day or so and teach on the weekends. Then I also started training some trainers on the side, really just to kind of get them knowledgeable enough that by the time we got a chance to officially have someone come out and certify them, we could do that. I discovered CycleBar in 2016. And I always remember someone close to me saying, you're really stupid if you don't take the opportunity to at least audition, even if you think you can't necessarily do it. and thankfully auditioned for Tevia, probably the most terrifying experience of my life. But started teaching that, added more classes to my schedule. And before I knew it, it was very much a full-time hustle. My schedule was very, very full.
Yeah.
And because I'm like such a, again, Enneagram type 3 person, but I think I also really like to challenge myself. One of my students recently reminded me, because now I teach 6 classes a week, which, you know, it's to balance all my other commitments I have. But one of my students came in recently and was reminding me, she's like, do you remember when you used to teach like 8 classes a day? I was like, yes. And she said, and you had this streak where you went 2 months with no days off, also normal. And she's like, and there was one time you taught 40 classes in 10 days. And I was like, yep, I remember all of that. Don't recommend it. But it was just, I was in this mode of, I loved it so much. I just wanted to do it as much as I could and to learn as much as I could. But now looking back at it, I also think that a huge part of me was trying to prove to everybody that I didn't leave being a lawyer because I couldn't hack it or because I wasn't willing to work hard. Like this wasn't me taking the easy route out. This was me feeling like I wanted to show people like I can do this at a level that is so far beyond what you can imagine. But I think I was really pushing myself to try to prove it to myself, to my family, to anybody else that it wasn't just me quitting something. It was me choosing something different.
I love that you have shared that. I get chills when you say it because I relate to that so much. And again, we're so similar in our like work ethic and personality type when it comes to work. And, I know for me, and we've talked about just kind of the stereotype of working in the fitness industry from an outsider. And I think it's changed a lot in the recent years. There's a lot more respect for fitness instructors, but I think historically it's like the meathead or the beefy or like, maybe a girl who's not as smart. She just works out and teaches her fitness classes. And so I definitely too felt like when I was getting into fitness, I'll never forget. And I don't know if I had shared the story with you, Andrea, but I was at like a big gala in our city, and it was me and like 2 other women, and some CEO guy was there talking to us, and he kind of asked what we did. And I was like, I'm a fitness instructor at CycleBar. And the girl next to me was like a lawyer, and someone else was high up in some company. And he like turned his back to me and like cut me out of the circle in the conversation. And that moment sticks with me because I'm like, talk to me. You have no idea what a conversation I could bring to a conversation and things like that. But I too have felt that need to prove and like to, now we're on the education team for CycleBar, but to be like, watch me folks, because I'm going to go as far up as I possibly can in this hustle. And to your point, just working and putting in the time and all those things just to prove it to ourselves, to others, just our drive. So how did, when you started getting into this, did you feel or did you have any interactions with people where you felt like they thought you were making the wrong decision? Or was it just all kind of your own self-reflection?
I have not heard that story from you, and I have one. And now I'm kind of curious if any other person who's gone fitness full time has a similar story. Mine didn't happen until I was well into it. And have you ever gone to one of those like timeshare presentations? Like they invite you to Vegas for like 4 days, 3 nights. Okay. So
I have not, but I know about them well. Yeah.
Okay. So like other random tips from this, don't buy those, you guys, don't buy those. However, we had gone on these because they're always like, it's a short flight from like the Bay Area. So my husband and I had done these maybe like twice. So I was able to then see the difference of the first time we did one and we went to this timeshare presentation and I told them I was a lawyer versus the next time I did one. And when I said I was a fitness instructor, and the first time we were like pretty gracious. Like we said, no, we just walked out. The second time, I think once I told them I was a fitness instructor, I was watching how differently everyone spoke to me and how just belittling and condescending. And so I decided, well, if this is very me as well, like you want to play this game, let's play this game. So we start denying.
They don't know who stepped into
I was
that
like,
room.
I'm about to destroy you for my own personal giggles. So
You literally would.
yeah, and I would, just for the spite of it. So they send out their first person. I'm like, I drop just enough crumbs, and I'm like, I'm going to work up to your highest boss. Like, send me your dungeon boss. Send me the guy who's at the top that is like your big closer. So we slowly work our way. We're here for a couple hours at this point. And I have to check with my husband. I was like, you're good with me doing this, right? So we keep kind of working our way up. And finally, they send out like the boss's boss's boss. And he's got like the bejeweled rings. He's got like the fancy suit. And I was like, oh, good. Let's go. So he walks up and he even sits down. And he's like, oh, he turns to my husband and he says, don't you want to be able to take your little lady on a vacation? And the switch that flipped in my brain at this moment. And so he, of course, like gave us some space to make the decision. And I told my husband, I was like, we're going to say yes. We're going to say yes. We're going to take the champagne. We're going to take the tickets, and we're going to take the limo out of here. And then the second we get into that limo, I am going to draft up the email because Nevada state law gives us 5 to 7 days to contract rescind. And I'm going to send that rescission while we were in the limo. This guy won't make a dime off of me, but I'm going to take him for everything he's got. And that's exactly what we did. I canceled that contract. I used that state law. I was like, this is great. And all because this guy made me feel less than. And it's so interesting because I would have never probably expected it to come from strangers. Who I did expect it to come from was probably like the community I had grown up in and my family. And we'll talk about the family, probably the last piece of it. But I was surprised that the judgment never came from like friends, acquaintances, like people that were like my peers. They were not the ones who were judgmental. And I really got to experience this because not too long after going full time, or once I was kind of in it, I had my 10-year high school reunion. And I remember having this small, not so small, panic attack about having to tell people that I had been a lawyer, but now I'm doing this fitness thing. And I caught myself always introducing myself as, oh, I teach fitness. I would catch myself making comments about like not having like a real job. Like I caught my own insecurity about it. So I decided I was going to go to this reunion. I was not going to do that. I was going to try not to belittle myself of all people. And people were so much more interested in me as a fitness instructor than they ever would have been with me as a lawyer, right? With a lawyer, they kind of assume they know what's happening. They probably watched, I don't know, Suits and think that that's what it is. And so no one seemed to care. And I just realized, oh, I'm doing this mostly to myself. For my family, I think that was the hardest piece because they had financially supported me to really finish school. And I think that made it complicated because I felt like I owed them something. But I also felt like I had already done it. I had already tried it. It's not like I didn't finish school. I did everything I felt that I was supposed to do. And I really wanted them to understand what I was doing. And it wasn't until actually getting promoted at CycleBar. I had already been promoted at Lagree to the highest level I could go to. And then I got promoted at CycleBar. And I just remember my mom's response kind of being like, well, like how many other ones are there? And I was like, well, not that many. There's not that many. It's kind of a big deal. It's fine. She was like, is the company public? I mean, kind of a big deal. It's just so like upset that she didn't recognize how great this was. And I also remember my younger brother just saying, he just didn't seem that excited. And he's like a very excitable person. And I was like, I just wish you guys could be excited for me. And he was like, no, like we're happy for you that you are happy, but this doesn't really mean anything to us. And that's what it took for me to understand, oh, you have no context to understand this, right? If I had told you I made partner at a law firm, something that more people understand, fine. But they don't understand what it is to have been in an industry that also historically does not have people at high leadership levels that look like me or sound like me or are of my background or of my ethnicity. And I'm at the point now where I realized it was more trying to, I guess, get to a point for myself that I didn't need someone else to really understand this. I needed to be able to say for myself, I have managed to get to the highest possible recognition and performance level in not just one, but 2 international fitness brands. And I am a fucking unicorn. And I'm done being anything less than this. I've lived my whole life trying to not put myself out there and just work hard and put my head down. And I'm done doing that. I want to celebrate how hard I've worked to get to where I am. And I don't need to prove this to anyone anymore, including myself. And I think that is the journey that the last 10 years of being in this industry has really been, trying to prove it to myself. I was the worst one. As much as I have talked about trying to disprove stereotypes to my family and still feel it all the time, I think it's important. So even going on the game show, it was so important to me that little, there's a name for that. The Chiron. It's the name for the little like blurby thing that's like under, like in every reality TV show where they like describe you.
Yes.
Other fun facts dropping in the middle. I really
didn't know that had a name.
That job. I know, right? See, I'm just chock full of fun facts today. But I wanted that to say fitness instructor because it was so important to me to represent that this community is not just a bunch of people who couldn't do anything else. There are some of us who chose to do this despite the fact that we probably could have put our talents towards many other things. And we also probably do, because we are truly, I think, the best multitaskers in the universe, is someone who can teach a fitness class. Your brain and your body have to fire at multiple levels. But it's fundamentally part of the issue with our society's lack of recognition that there can be different ways for you to be intelligent, that it isn't always just books or facts, and we can use our skills towards things that maybe are not as traditionally high status.
Well, this has been really powerful. I mean, I'm sitting here and I wanted to, I was like, we'll banter and it'll be great, but I could just listen to you speak on it forever because I feel it so deeply in my soul. I feel like you are saying the things that go through my head, but just truly powerful, Andrea, for so many different reasons. And so thank you so much for coming on and kind of sharing your background, your journey, and your story, and what it feels like. And what a beautiful place to be at now that there's nothing to prove. And I feel that kind of too. I know you and I have talked about this, where we're both kind of at this position where we have reached pretty, like kind of almost the highest you can, at least for here at CycleBar, pretty much. Well, I appreciate you so much for coming on, Andrea. Every time I wrap up the show, I like to give the guests an opportunity just to leave the listeners with one message. If they skimmed through or only heard parts of it, what would you want to make sure the one thing is that they take away?
I think the benefit of the craziness of my life, like I think our shared friend and boss, K-Max, once pointed out my Instagram bio and just like read it line by line. And I was like, wow, I sound so impressive. I was just reading. I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. Impressive. Like there's so many things. But I realized all of these things, like the titles, game show winner, breast cancer survivor, life is incredibly unpredictable. It is not only short and time is finite, but life is unpredictable. I think it is too unpredictable and potentially too short for us not to be persistent in pursuing passion. And whether or not that passion ends up being your family, whether it ends up being, a hobby that you do on the side while your day job, pays the bills, I think we have to find it. I think that in the time that we've got with what we have to find something that lights our soul on fire. And that sometimes means taking chances to do things that seem absolutely insane because they really might lead to the best opportunities and the most lived life that you can have in the time that you're here.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, FoulMouthedFit. I just love you dearly, my roomie for life. And thank you so much for coming on. And everybody who is listening, have a great day because you deserve it.